In this lesson, we're going to go through this checklist that I created to help you be able to start a new nonprofit organization. This checklist is adapted from Management Help. I've made significant changes to it, but the link for the original could be found there. I've added several stages to it, but this is basically the stages that I went through starting a nonprofit. I didn't go through every single one of them because I didn't do it like I should have 10 years ago. If I was to start a nonprofit today, these are the steps that I'll go through it. That's a better way to say it. And that's how I advise you to go through it, because you would avoid many of the mistakes that people who get into starting a nonprofit who haven't thought through it and gotten some training and learned from others, they make these kinds of mistakes. So, first step, I advise that you begin with strategy. Okay, start working on strategy by developing your winning aspirations. Your winning aspirations are what? Your mission, your vision. Good. We've discussed that at length in different lessons in this course. So come up with a brief mission statement that describes the charitable purpose of your organization. And when you have a board, because the board's job is strategic guidance of the organization, is strategic leadership, they are going to have to authorize this statement. And the board can change it at any time, but they're going to authorize the initial statement. And you'll see this happen, at least begin to happen, when you watch the video on how to hold your first board meeting, how the board basically takes over where the founders end and continue to lead the organization. Step number 2, recruit first board members. Okay, you need to recruit your first board, recruit at least enough board members to meet the state requirements for forming a corporation if you plan to form a corporation. And you could consider an advisory board at this stage. Okay, most states like Texas require at least 3 people. You should have at least 3 people on your board. I think that's a good number to at least have 3, but you should have, I would recommend anywhere from 5 to 10, 11, 12. You know, if you're starting something small, staying around 7-ish would be a good range to stay. There's no magic number. The goal is to get as many people as you need to make your organization work, but as few as you need to avoid it becoming a challenge to manage the board. Stage number 3, choose a name for your organization. We've discussed that in a different lesson. Stage number 4, draft articles of incorporation and get board approval. So also, I say here, also the certificate of formation, also called the certificate of formation, these specify the legal description of your organization and power that is given to the board. Okay, then the board should approve these articles. I say here that you should consider a lawyer. You don't need a lawyer. When I started Shaping Destiny, I filed the articles of incorporation by myself. I also filed for tax exemption, the 501c3, by myself. I filled everything out, didn't get any help from any lawyer or anything like that. I used a friend of mine who had done his. He had paid somebody, so I looked at what he had paid somebody to do. I was like, I could do this by myself, and then I did it. Now, I don't advise that you do the IRS tax exemption form. It's very tedious and it takes a lot of time. Pay $500 to $750 to get somebody to do it. Okay, I recommend LegalZoom can do it. I don't benefit from recommending them. They would do it. This is LegalZoom. This is their website. They could do it for you. Again, there are other places that can do it too. Just Google, you'll be able to find other places that could do it. It should cost about $500 or something like that. And The articles of incorporation, though, you can do it by yourself, and I have done a video on that to show you how to be able to fill that form. For example, if you're in Texas, if you're in a different state in the US, the procedure will be similar, but I've done a video to show you how to do it. So I encourage you to do that one. Don't go pay a lawyer and waste money. Do it by yourself, okay? So step number 5, draft bylaws and get board approval. Bylaws are the written rules that govern the internal management of your organization. I have a video done that tells you how to write your bylaws. I have you covered on most of these things that are required, but we'll get to a point where, of course, they wouldn't be. Some states require these bylaws as part of as part with the articles of formation of the process of incorporation. So they need articles of incorporation and bylaws. Some states do that, but Texas doesn't do that. And when you file your articles of incorporation, I think I've said this in a different video, but it's worth reminding you here again that you should think about what the IRS requires to be on there if you plan to get the tax exempt status. The IRS would usually want to see that you have a conflict of interest statement in there. Okay. They'll want to see that you have a statement in there in your articles that basically says what will happen if the nonprofit closes, which will be that the nonprofit will hand over its property to a similar tax-exempt IRS certified nonprofit, tax-exempt nonprofit that works in the same area, so they could continue to use those things. The IRS wants that. And then, of course, your purpose must be one that meets regulations for exemption, and also they want an indemnification clause in there. Check and make sure that you talk to the organization or company that is like LegalZoom that I recommend here. Again, I benefit nothing. I recommend that you talk to them and get what is going to be in the articles of incorporation before you actually fill out you get what is going to be in the IRS tax exempt form, because they do change the form. They can change the form anytime. I filed mine like how many years ago? Like 7 years ago or something like that. So 7 or 8 years ago. So they may have changed a few things, but the things I just told you now about the requirements they're still good. The conflict of interest, the indemnification, the purpose, and what else did I say? All those things are still required. But talk with the person who's going to file it, or look it up if you want to take the challenge to file it by yourself. Look up the form, look at what is going to be on there, so that you include what is required on the articles of incorporation. That will help you do it just one time. I had to do it. I had to update it, okay, because I did it by myself. I had to basically update the articles to add what the IRS wants on there. I paid another application fee of $25 and redid the process, but just adding something. That's not going to kill you if you have to. Then number 5, draft bylaws. We talked about that. There's a video on bylaws. File articles of incorporation that you drafted. The board needs to oversee all this. You should have had your board that you recruit your first board in number 2. Then the board is going to oversee bylaws and drafting of articles of incorporation. Then they'll designate somebody to file it. Then you should have your first board meeting right here. And I have a video that covers this, that tells you how to organize and have your first board meeting. Get a bank account. In the first board meeting, I talk about how you should get a resolution that authorizes the designated individuals to be able to sign on a bank account. The bank will not create the bank account without it. In Cameroon, it's the same thing. I think Cameroon would be typical of developing countries, and in the US, it's like that. So there may be some differences, but it's I've seen it myself in a developing country, and I've seen it in a developed country like the US. So get an accountant, and I recommend Nathan Pringle here. He's the accountant for Shaping Destiny in Waco. He's a good guy. I love him. He's a godly man. Get an accountant or other financial expert to help you set up basic bookkeeping system. Shaping Destiny uses QuickBooks. QuickBooks is very good. You could use it for profit organization or for a non-profit organization. You need this to be able to keep good records, okay? You need this to be able to keep good records. Don't go start with an Excel spreadsheet like I did. Gee, when I started, I just jumped in there and don't do that. Get the help that I'm offering you, okay? This is what professionals recommend. And this is what we now do. Why go waste time and do things that are going to waste your time? Jump in there, learn from the mistakes we made, okay? Okay, good. Number 10, do multi-state filing and get solicitation license. Now, from number 10 onward, these are things that we don't cover in the Start an Orphanage class. I did this to cover those just to be nice and helpful, but we don't cover these kinds of things in the class because that's not part of starting an orphanage or starting a nonprofit. This class, Start an Orphanage, is really a class for start a nonprofit. That's what it is, because an orphanage is a nonprofit. We show you how to start the bare bones, and we describe that in the course description, so it's not something new to the student. The recommendation is that you should do a multi-state filing. That allows you basically to be able to raise funds in any US state, okay, because there are some laws on raising funds. And this website that I've put here is going to help you to be able to do that. Continue with strategy. Basically, this point, note, I said I was going to teach you how to do this point on goal setting. So I'm going to teach it to you now. It's not difficult to teach. I'm going to teach it to you in 1 minute. So after you have basically come up with your mission, vision, you've come up with your core values, you've already begun the strategy process. Okay, you've already gotten to your aspirational goals. You've gotten to your winning aspiration. Then the next thing after that, as you start looking for where to play and how to win, you're going to start thinking of basically your capacity, okay, the people. You're going to start thinking of your who, your capabilities, okay, the people, your capabilities, okay. Then you as you're thinking of those things, you need to start setting goals, okay. Remember, the last of the 5 questions is that you're basically going to ask for what systems and structures do I need to be able to support the capabilities that will help me win. So under step number 1, remember that I said that those 5 questions are iterative. It's an iterative process where you don't go finish one and then go to another. You keep going back and forth and checking. You guys should be picturing what I'm talking about if you've been following up with this course. So at this point, you're going to take your mission and say, okay, this is our mission, and take your vision and say, our vision is this. Okay. Now, for the next 1 year, what do you want to accomplish that will take you closer to your vision? Then you set some goals. Okay, goal number 1, goal number 2, goal number 3, goal number 4, goal number 5. Don't set too many goals. Okay, set at the most 5 to 8. 5 is good for your first year. Set some goals, 1 year goals, and then maybe 3 year goals. Even these are going to change. The idea of setting goals is not that you've written a commandment that cannot be broken. I mean, like the 3 year goals can be changed. But your 1 year goals, set goals that you could foresee what's happening in the 1 year, and you start doing them. That way, every year with strategic guidance that is provided by the board, you can actually be seeing that the organization is headed in the direction of actually fulfilling its mission and achieving its vision. Okay. That's basically what you need to do for goal setting. Now, goal setting is important also because from those goals, you then have objectives. there could be 4 or 5 objectives to achieve a goal, or as many objectives as are needed to be able to achieve a goal. And then those objectives and goals will determine the budget. Okay, how much are we going to spend on each of these objectives to achieve each of these goals? And then that will allow you to be able to create your first budget. Okay, so that's it. That's what you should know. I couldn't do that for you because, one, I don't know your mission. I don't know what you're going to accomplish. Two, you need to have your board do this. And so that's it. That's all you need to basically know about doing it. But it's not as easy as it sounds. Okay, it takes more than it takes to say it, to do it. So file tax exemption. Okay, we've talked about that. Legal Zoom is recommended. Get tax exemption from the state. In the state of Texas, when you get tax exemption from the IRS, it's almost guaranteed that you'll get tax exemption from the state. But it's not automatic, as in you just stay. You have to file. You have to contact the controller of the state of Texas. There's a form that you will fill and show in there that you have IRS tax exemption and give a copy, and then they would give you a judgment, and it will likely be that you're tax exempt. And so it's only their judgment that says you're tax exempt that works. Just having tax exemption for the federal government doesn't do it. Even though when you have that, it's almost automatic that after you file, you get it. Okay. Consider getting property tax exemption from the city. That's if you have property. Okay. There was a time when we learned about this, okay, like several years ago. And I was calling the city and calling people trying to find where you get tax exemption. And then I met some smart man, and the person asked me, do we have property, like a house or something like that? And we didn't. We're renting. And say, well, if you don't have property, you don't need property tax exemption from the city. So don't go waste your time doing what I did. Okay, gee, it looks like I've made so many mistakes that I'm just sharing, and hopefully you don't make these mistakes. Okay, yeah, a good teacher is one who's made mistakes and keeps record of it so that you can teach students not to make those mistakes. I think that's really good for a teacher. Okay, get mail permit. Okay, if you want to be able to do bulk mailing, get mail permit, but this is usually after you get your tax exemption to be able to qualify for that. Okay, so let's see. So that's pretty much it for this lesson, and this is an overview of what it takes to be able to start a nonprofit. We've done courses again for everything from beginning strategy to choosing your first board to there's a video for strategy. There's 2 weeks of strategy setting that covers everything you need to know about strategy. There's a video for recruiting board members. There's a video for choosing a name. There's a video for drafting articles of incorporation, and even a video of showing you how I fill one for the state of Texas. There's a video for bylaws. Again, this is the same thing, articles of incorporation, like filing it. There's a video for the first board meeting. You don't need a video on how to get a bank account. I told you that. So basically, we've covered everything that you need to know to be able to be successful. I pray that you will succeed, and that whatever organization God leads you to start, that it'll be an organization, whether it's a business or a non-profit, that you will literally change the world